A few minutes of following the sound through his garden led Martin to a small opening underneath his porch. This deck leading up to his front door was raised about 3 feet off the ground, a long, shallow space free underneath. Martin squatted down and stuck his head into the dark, damp space underneath his porch. This bird was about to completely turn one man's life upside down. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. The baby creature was discovered in the strangest of places, and when the man who found it brought the baby bird to his local vet, things really got crazy. Something is present there. What is that? Martin caught sight of a little item, and then something moved. The man crept curiously deeper into the area until, at last, he came to what he was looking for. What the hell? This was no common garden bird. Martin had a gut feeling that something was up with this. He was curious, but he also didn't want to get involved too much. Martin took a different tack since he was aware that excessive human interference would probably cause a mother to abandon her nest. Martin positioned the entire nest, complete with young bird, in the middle of his yard. He positioned himself behind the kitchen window so that he could get a clear view of the chirping bird, and waited for the baby's mother to come back there. But no parent came to feed her after she stared at them for 4 hours. Martin eventually gave up and brought the animal inside. He gave her some of his fishing maggots as he could see it was hungry. And that's when something else odd occurred. Was her ankle sprained? Seeing the poor animal trying to walk broke Martin's heart, so he decided to get assistance. Concerned, the guy contacted his neighborhood veterinarian and asked if he could stop by for a brief examination. Martin placed the animal in a box on his passenger seat and drove to the veterinarian's office. When Martin arrived at the veterinary clinic, the doctor personally greeted him. The situation began when Martin set the box containing the bird on the veterinarian's table. The veterinarian circled the inquisitive bird several times, noting things as he went. A few minutes passed in silence, at which point the doctor said to himself, "Sprained ankle, ichthyornis characteristics." The veterinarian constructed a splint for the bird's leg, but Martin could see that the vet's mind was occupied with more ideas than just bandaging a bird. The man no longer exuded such confidence. "This is amazing," the veterinarian said. "I've never seen anything like this," among other things. The bewildered doctor turned to his desk and turned on the computer after that remark. Martin watched the doctor's monitor, hoping to see any hints, even though he was still in the dark. Martin noticed many photographs of a big bird flashing by after a minute or so. The animal, staring at the newborn bird before him, appeared both bizarre and strangely familiar. Was this a mature animal or something else? Martin was a little afraid since the thing had a menacing appearance. The doctor then turned his chair and stated, "This animal shouldn't be allowed to exist. You won't believe this. This finding has shocked me to no end." The physician went on to say that more than 20 years ago, this particular species was listed as extinct in all global databases. The vet said that even if Martin couldn't accept it, it had to be real. After examining every unique characteristic of the animal, it passed inspection. "Where did you report finding it beneath your porch?" Though it wasn't the last question, Martin nodded. Where would the mother be if Martin had discovered the baby? Many of Martin's queries were addressed by his veterinarian, but he also added some worrying parts to the jigsaw. This infant and her family may be the last of their kind on the earth if this bird is considered to be an extinct species. This was simultaneously amazing and terrifying. Once more, the young bird stayed eerily silent. That wasn't entirely pointless, though. We'll see why a little later. Meanwhile, the vehicle had returned to Martin's driveway, and the two men set out to find this incredibly uncommon bird. There was a woman waiting for them when they arrived at the porch where this tale began. When Martin first saw her, he was a little bewildered, but the veterinarian reassured him that she was much needed in this circumstance. The veterinarian brought in an expert to assist while closing up business. One of the state's foremost ornithologists, Melissa Brown, went by that name. She would be the one to know everything about native birds. The three of them crossed the porch to the edge where the 3-foot opening was. Martin pointed into the dark hole and added, "This is where I spotted her. all the way in the very back. She explained to the two guys that just one egg is laid by this kind of bird at a time while displaying the fragments. 20 years ago, it had already become rare, and their extinction was nearly certain due to the small number of eggs that hatched each season. But this one made it through somehow. Although it's incredible, there was one small issue. The fact that this baby bird was here by itself was not a good omen because, in the case of this unusual bird, mothers seldom leave their young. Additionally, the mother stays with her young all the time while the father goes searching for food. Martin clarified that he did not see the mother throughout his 4 hours of waiting. That is not favorable. This type of mother would typically always go back to get her child. Thus, the absence of this event indicated that something was preventing her from coming. However, what? She reiterated that this family of birds deserved to be protected since it was likely the last of its species. Martin was ecstatic to see these enormous claw prints, but he was also a little anxious. It was time for them to go. The veterinarian advised Martin not to bring the newborn bird inside, even if he wanted to. He mentioned that they may require the young bird's cry to entice her mother. As they walked the track out from his garden, Martin nodded and hugged the box close to his breast. The tiny bird's chirps resounded through the trees as the route carried them into the woodland. Following 30 minutes or so of strolling and attempting to locate the route, an unexpected event occurred. The little bird chirped loudly and got a response this time that was deeper in pitch. The three of them kept quiet as they walked through a section of the woodland that was open, dodging fallen branches. She extended her hand and motioned for Martin to bring her the box containing the bird. Melissa set the tiny bird in the middle of the woodland floor, and Martin obeyed. They waited now. The baby's chirping became louder, indicating that she knew who her mother was. She must have called attention because a moment later, a giant shadow came down from overhead and landed on the forest floor next to her. Martin had seen larger birds at zoos before, but this one was enormous. What makes a mother bird abandon her offspring in such a manner? And why did the little bird have such easy faith in people? The expert did, however, abruptly appear to be getting closer. "What are you doing?" Melissa approached the two birds, shushing them and requesting their trust. Although Martin and the veterinarian were unable to make sense of the situation, it appears that the specialist saw anything unusual. She looked to have changed in attitude. It seemed as though she had discovered a fresh type of confidence, the kind that could only be attained via learning new things. However, what was it? Melissa approached the two birds with composure and ultimately stood next to them, as Martin and the veterinarian observed intently. The mother and her child, for whatever reason, never lost their composure. The image was already uncanny, but it was about to become even more bizarre. With a smile, Melissa invited the two men to emerge from hiding and accompany her. With a perplexed expression, Martin instructed the woman to deliver the bad news first. "Unfortunately, we have not succeeded in our quest since this bird is not the extinct species that we believe to exist today. However, that does not negate the uniqueness of these organisms." Martin watched as the woman caressed the bird's plumage as the specialist described the harpy eagle as a unique species of bird. Particularly this one, it was still one of the rarest and biggest species of eagle. Melissa told them there were only perhaps 1,000 feathers remaining on Earth and displayed the colors of the feathers. "But how are you able to touch it?" "The harpy eagle is among the world's most intelligent birds," according to Melissa, who grinned. She said they had a reputation for being kind and trustworthy toward others. She also acknowledged how much their look resembled that of the extinct species. I was fooled as well. But there was one peculiar thing. It was somewhat surprising to see the harpy eagle here, considering it was not a native to this planet. They are most likely the first of their type to establish themselves in this area. The specialist continued by elucidating the child's desertion. She surmised that the eagle reasoned that a human could provide better care for her young than she could because of the injury to the juvenile bird and the animal's faith in people. These were stunning, forceful, and for the most part quite clever birds, and for some reason the mother bird's scheme was flawless. Her youngster was feeling much better than when they'd first been wrapped. Martin gained a whole new respect for the natural world and this particular type of bird. A minute later, the father arrived via plane. The three took a step back and marveled at the passionate sight that was playing out in front of them. The newborn bird was poked by both parents, who then picked it up off the ground and carried it to a neighboring tree. A sensation of warmth welled up inside Martin. This trip was incredible. Thank you. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.